Open a map in your mind. Start in Thailand. Slowly trace your finger south. Where Myanmar and Laos meet, there's a shadowy zone known as the Golden Triangle. Now move further down, cross the Gulf of Thailand, skip Malaysia, and stop in Indonesia. Right in the middle of the Java Sea, a small and often overlooked island appears, Madura. This island sits at one of the most critical crossroads of the global underworld. Yet almost no one talks about it. Because Madura's real power lies in staying invisible. Late at night, when the harbor is quiet, a boat leaves the port of Bangkok. On paper, it's listed as a fishing vessel. In reality, its hold carries 500 kilograms of heroin. The final destination is Australia. But going there directly is impossible. Australia has one of the most advanced coast guard systems in the world: radars, satellite tracking, underwater sonar. Sailing straight into those waters would be suicide. That's why an intermediate stop is essential. And that stop is almost always the same, Madura. Since the 1960s, the Golden Triangle had become the world's largest heroin production zone. The borderlands of Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand were covered with endless poppy fields. Every year, thousands of tons of opium were processed and prepared for global distribution. But one question remained: how would it reach the world? China was tightly controlled, India was risky, and the Middle East was unstable due to constant conflict. That left only one viable option: the southern route, through Indonesia toward Australia and New Zealand. In the 1970s, cartel networks operating in Thailand began closely studying the Indonesian archipelago. There were hundreds of islands, but most were either tourist hubs or under military surveillance. Madura was different. Just 7 kilometers from Surabaya, yet almost completely ignored. Poor fishing communities, weak infrastructure, minimal police presence. For smugglers, it was a perfect transit point. The first contact was established in 1972. When the first courier arrived from Thailand on Madura's northern coast, he carried 20 kilograms of heroin and a simple proposal: we bring the product. You hide it for one night. Another boat collects it the next day. In return, you'll live comfortably for a year. The fisherman didn't hesitate. His children were hungry. And that night, Madura's fate quietly changed forever. During the first year, only a handful of shipments passed through. Each time, a different bay was used. The system was brutally simple. A Thai boat arrived under cover of darkness, buried plastic containers beneath the sand. Hours later, another vessel arrived, retrieved the cargo, and set course for Australia. The window between transfers was just 6 to 8 hours. Short, silent, and incredibly dangerous. But the system was silent. And that silence made it incredibly powerful. No one noticed what was really happening. By 1975, the operation had fully professionalized. Random fishermen were no longer part of the chain. A structured organization had been established on Madura. 3 dominant families divided the island into zones: the northern coast, the eastern bay, the southern strait. Each area had its own controller, all of them connected directly to contacts in Thailand, Malaysia, or Singapore. Madura was no longer just an island. It was operating like a corporation. The first major crisis came in 1978. During a routine patrol, Indonesian authorities stopped a suspicious boat. A search revealed 150 kilograms of heroin hidden in the hold. The crew members were all from Madura. After 2 days of interrogation, they confessed everything. Police units immediately began preparing a raid on the island. But the cartel's information network was faster. The warning went out before the operation could begin. By the end of that week, every storage point on Madura had been cleared. The cargo was loaded onto boats and taken offshore. Some of it was dumped into the sea, while other shipments were hidden on nearby small islands. When police arrived early Monday morning, they found nothing. Only fishing villages and impoverished locals. The operation failed, and once again, Madura survived. After that incident, the system evolved. No product was ever stored on land again. Shipments were sealed inside waterproof capsules and placed underwater, with precise GPS coordinates recorded. Thai vessels dropped the capsules at sea. Madurese fishermen retrieved them using the coordinates. Hours later, Australian boats arrived, collected the cargo, and disappeared. Not a single trace was left on land. In the 1980s, production in the Golden Triangle reached its peak. Around 2,500 tons of opium and 250 tons of heroin each year. Numbers that defied belief. Nearly 40% of that flow passed through the Madura route. The island had become the heart of an invisible empire. The heart was beating hard, yet no one was listening. When the Australian Federal Police began analysing heroin cases in Sydney and Melbourne, a pattern emerged. Most arrested couriers had Indonesian connections. But the true source remained unclear. Intelligence reports were compiled, satellite images reviewed. And for the first time, a single name surfaced repeatedly: Madura. From that point on, Australia began increasing diplomatic and operational pressure on Indonesia. In 1985, Australia and Indonesia launched a joint operation. Its codename was clear: Ocean Net. The surveillance phase lasted 2 full months. Boat movements were tracked, suspicious fishermen were flagged, and financial transactions were carefully analyzed. Eventually, the net was pulled tight. In March 1986, coordinated arrests took place. 8 suspects were detained in Madura, 12 more in Australia. Authorities seized 750 kilograms of heroin. International media declared it a major success. But the celebration didn't last long. Just months later, shipments resumed. Those arrested were only minor players. The real power figures were still untouched. And they had already rebuilt the system. During the 1990s, GPS technology rapidly advanced. Cartels adopted it immediately. Every shipment was now planned with near-military precision. A Thai vessel arrived at pre-recorded coordinates and dropped the capsules. Exactly 3 hours later, a Madurese boat reached the same point and retrieved them. Timing was calculated down to the second. The system worked flawlessly. Around this time, Madura's role evolved once again. The island was no longer just a transit hub. It had become a financial center. Drug profits were laundered through Madura-based banks, then transferred onward to Singapore and Hong Kong. Madura functioned like an offshore haven. And remarkably, international financial institutions failed to notice. In the early 2000s, the drug market shifted dramatically. The methamphetamine era had begun. Demand for heroin declined, while crystal meth exploded in popularity. The Golden Triangle adapted quickly. Poppy fields in Myanmar were replaced by chemical laboratories. But the route remained the same. The new product flowed along the familiar path: Thailand, Madura, Australia. Meth shipments were far more compact. Within the same volume, they carried up to 10 times more value than heroin. This multiplied Madura's business scale. By 2005, the estimated value passing through the island reached nearly $2 billion. And once again, almost no one was aware of it. Meanwhile, Australia's meth crisis deepened. In Sydney, addiction rates skyrocketed. The government entered emergency mode. New measures were introduced, task forces expanded. Yet the supply couldn't be stopped. Because the Madura system had evolved yet again. Traditional boats were phased out. Semi-submersible vessels took their place. Semi-submersibles were originally developed by Latin American cartels. Asian networks copied the concept, refined it, and enhanced it. Fiberglass bodies, GPS navigation, radar-absorbent coatings. These machines were nearly invisible at sea. And they were quietly departing from Madura on a regular basis. In 2010, the Indonesian Navy detected something unusual at sea. It didn't appear on radar systems, but it was visually spotted. An interception team was dispatched immediately. The object attempted to escape, but failed. It turned out to be a semi-submersible vessel. Inside, authorities found 1.2 tons of methamphetamine. Estimated street value: $800 million. Every crew member was from Madura. The incident sent shockwaves through international media. For the first time, the name Madura appeared in global headlines. The Indonesian government came under intense pressure. President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono responded with strict measures. A special task force was established, clearly named Satgas Nusantara, Madura Operation. The years 2011 and 2012 were extremely difficult for the island. Continuous raids, maritime patrols, temporary sea closures. Madura was effectively under siege. But the cartels adapted quickly. This time, they bypassed the island entirely. New routes were activated: Bali, Lombok, Sulawesi. Madura seemed to be losing relevance. Or so it appeared, because intelligence reports released in 2015 revealed a surprising truth. Madura was still active, it was simply operating differently. Products no longer arrived directly on the island. Shipments first reached various locations across Java, then moved by land to Surabaya, and finally transported by boat to Madura. The system had become more complex, but far more secure. A new method was also introduced: container smuggling. Goods were hidden inside containers traveling from Madura to Surabaya port. These containers were then loaded onto legitimate commercial vessels bound for Australia. Fake documentation was prepared to pass customs checks. The success rate reached nearly 70%. In 2018, Australian Border Force launched a major operation. A suspicious container was flagged at Sydney port. Its origin was listed as Surabaya. The paperwork claimed it carried wooden furniture. But X-ray scans told a different story. When opened, authorities discovered 500 kilograms of methamphetamine hidden inside the furniture. Estimated value: $350 million. Tracing the shipment led investigators back to Madura. The company that prepared the container was registered on the island. Its owner belonged to one of Madura's wealthiest families. Australia requested extradition. Indonesia approved it. But before the legal process could begin, the man disappeared. He was never seen again. This incident exposed how deeply rooted the Madura system had become. It was no longer limited to fishermen. Business owners, logistics networks, local power structures, and even individuals within security forces were involved. The system had embedded itself into the island's social fabric. Removing it was nearly impossible. When the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020, many believed border closures would halt drug trafficking. The opposite happened. With borders shut, smuggling became even more profitable. Supply dropped while demand surged. Prices doubled in a short time. And Madura was ready to exploit the opportunity. During the pandemic, cartels introduced a new tactic: fishing vessel camouflage. Dozens of boats left shore simultaneously, all appearing to conduct normal fishing operations. In reality, only a few of them carried illegal cargo. Which ones were loaded was known only to the coordinators. For maritime police, it became a guessing game. Identifying the right boat to stop was nearly impossible. The system proved devastatingly effective. In 2020 and 2021, methamphetamine entering Australia reached record levels. According to the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission, 8.2 tons of meth were released into the market annually. Roughly 65% of it came through Indonesian routes. And Madura remained at the heart of that corridor. In 2023, authorities responded with new technology. Artificial intelligence and machine learning systems were deployed. Australia implemented a platform that analyzed the historical movements of every incoming vessel. Suspicious routes, unusual pauses, repeated coordinate patterns, all were flagged. When the data was reviewed, one location surfaced repeatedly: Madura. In March 2024, the AI system detected something unusual. Off the coast of Madura, during the final week of each month, boat activity spiked around a specific point. Yet these boats weren't fishing. They were simply waiting on the water. Intelligence units dispatched drones. What they captured was shocking. The vessels were collecting floating capsules from the sea. But where were these capsules coming from? More drones were launched. And the truth emerged. The capsules were anchored to the seabed with cables. When needed, a remote signal was sent, causing them to rise to the surface. Simple, silent, and brilliant. This method had likely been in use for years. But it was the first time it had been clearly identified. Indonesia and Australia coordinated a joint operation. On June 15, 2024, simultaneous actions were carried out. 27 capsules were recovered from the sea. Authorities seized 2.1 tons of methamphetamine. Estimated value: $1.4 billion. It became one of the largest drug busts in the history of both countries. Still, everyone understood the reality. This was only a strike, not a knockout. the system would adapt again. Because Madura was more than a location. It was a mindset. For cartel leadership, Madura meant flexibility, adaptation, and survival. Today, in 2025, Madura remains alive on the global smuggling map. It no longer faces the same level of pressure. New routes through the Philippines, Vietnam, and Papua New Guinea have grown stronger. Yet Madura remains a reliable option. The system is built on more than 50 years of experience. Products originating in the Golden Triangle are no longer moved solely by boats. Drones are now part of the chain. Along the Thailand-Myanmar border, small unmanned aerial vehicles can carry up to 50 kilograms of methamphetamine per flight. These drones deliver the cargo to Malaysia, where it is repackaged. From there, boats transport it to Madura, and the final leg leads straight to Australia. Then came the age of cryptocurrency. Cash was no longer moved in bags or suitcases. Payments shifted to Bitcoin, Monero, and Ethereum. Cartels operating out of Madura began actively using blockchain technology. Young programmers arrived from Jakarta. They wrote code, built systems, erased trails. Some of them made millions in a short time. Technology had completely transformed the mechanics of smuggling. Yet some things never change. Fishermen still head out to sea before sunrise. Women continue selling salt at the local markets. Children play in the streets. On the surface, Madura looks innocent, almost ordinary. But beneath that calm exterior, a massive machine keeps turning. And it never stops. International security assessments often repeat the same conclusion: eliminating Madura is impossible. Because Madura is not just a place, it is a system. To destroy that system, global drug demand would have to disappear. And for now, that remains a fantasy. So what does the future hold? Artificial intelligence will continue to evolve. Surveillance systems will grow stronger. International cooperation will expand. Maybe Madura's influence will weaken. Maybe it will be shut down entirely. But more likely, a new Madura will emerge. Somewhere else. Under a different name. Yet serving the same purpose. An invisible transit hub. History has taught us this lesson over and over again. Where there is demand, supply always finds a way. Borders are drawn, laws are enforced, technologies are developed. But human ingenuity often stays one step ahead. That is why Madura continues to exist. And perhaps the hardest truth of all is this: Madura's success reflects our collective failure. We failed to eliminate poverty. We failed to address economic inequality. We failed to fight addiction effectively. And those failures created the conditions that allow systems like Madura to thrive. Today, the island still appears peaceful. Waves hit the shore. Seagulls circle above. Everything feels normal. But deep into the night, beneath the surface of the sea, another world comes alive. A hidden world that quietly fuels our own, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. Madura's story is not finished. It is still being written. New pages are added every day. No one knows how it will end. Perhaps the system will collapse. Perhaps it will grow even stronger. Perhaps new Maduras will rise. But remember this: some places are visible on the map. Others are invisible, yet they shape everything. Madura is one of those places. Invisible, but everywhere. Silent, but powerful. Small, yet profoundly influential. And this story is not only about Madura. It is the story of the modern world itself. The dark side of globalization. The people progress forgot. Products that always find a path as long as demand exists. All of it converges quietly on this small island, right before our eyes. Maybe one day, things will truly change. Maybe Madura will return to being just a fishing island. Children will go to school. Women will work in safe, fair jobs. Men will earn their living honestly. Maybe. But until that day comes, the route remains open. And the boats keep moving. The sea sees everything, but the sea never speaks.